Hey, Sissy. Okay, we'll give it a couple minutes because I think a couple more people are coming in. Oh, and Vicky can't find us. Tina, have you watched Abducted in Plain Sight yet? Ah, it's a strange one, I'll give you that. Hi, Autumn. We're going to wait for a couple more people. I think Deanna's still coming, and once they get in here, we'll get going. Autumn, did you ever get to watch In Plain Sight or Abducted in Plain Sight? Shame on you. Can you guys hear me okay? There you go, Autumn. Blame Connor. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and start. If they come in and they don't know what we're talking about, they can always ask and we'll let them know. But Abducted in Plain Sight is a case about it. Her name is Jan I think it's Borgen. Or no, it's Broberg. And she was 12 years old when she was abducted by a friend of the family. Now, she was abducted October 17th of 1974. This friend of the family, his name is Robert Birchtold. They called him B. He had asked if he could take her to the stables to ride horses. Her mom at first said no and then gave in and said, yeah. Well, he never brought her back. And this was on a Thursday. They didn't call the cops on Thursday. They didn't call the cops on Friday because they were afraid of upsetting B's wife. They didn't want her upset or hurt her feelings. So they waited till Saturday. And on Saturday, when they did call, because it was the 70s, the office they called didn't have anybody there, and they told them to call another office if it was an emergency. Well, her mother never followed through. She said she didn't want to get people upset for no reason. So they actually waited until Monday to report her missing. Now, the parents said that they felt like he gave Jan more attention than the other two daughters they had, and that they were a little uncomfortable with it, but they weren't that concerned. And when they first went missing, I don't guess they had any major concerns. But by Monday, they were worried and didn't quite know what to think. Now, me, I don't care if I'm upsetting somebody's wife or husband. My kid goes missing, that first call is going to be to the cops. Yeah, Glad she wasn't mine either. Uh, they just kind of, I don't know if they were very naive or what the deal was, but as the story goes along, you learn more and more about the case, that she wasn't abducted just once, but twice. The second time, she snuck out to meet the guy, but it was considered still a kidnapping because of her age. She, when she was gone the first time, she, I think, was gone about 3 or 4 weeks, and they found her in Mexico. But by this time, she had married this man, because in Mexico, the legal age of marriage was age 12. And he had his brother call the girl's parents to tell them they could only come back if they would agree to let him get married in the United States. That way he wouldn't go to prison, and that it's what the little girl wanted. Just several things that didn't sound right to me, but they did hold their ground on that and said, no, she's not getting married. So they fly to Mexico, they pick up their daughter, they bring her home. Mexico extradites B, who had kidnapped her. And while he's sitting in jail, his wife goes over to the parents' house. Now, the FBI had told him, have no contact with this family whatsoever. But they chose to ignore that. And the wife told him, I need you to go drop all the charges. I need you to sign affidavits, saying that basically he had your permission to take her. And she said if they didn't, then they would air their dirty laundry. Now, the dirty laundry on the parents was that the mother had engaged in some risky behavior with, hi, Betsy, with B. She didn't have sex with him at this point, but they, as she put it, had been necking. And there was also an incident where B and the girl's dad were in a car. They had parked somewhere, and B told the girl's dad, he said, I can't stand my wife. I need to have sex. I need relief. Would you relieve me? And for some reason, the man decided to relieve him by masturbation. His words, not mine. So that was the dirty laundry they were going to air if they went on to press charges for the kidnapping. So the parents decided, well, we don't want that out there. So they went to the attorney's office, signed the affidavits. I guess their shame was more important than their child's safety at that point. I don't know. The judge that had the case to begin with decided he was going to go ahead with the trial. But they really didn't have any witnesses, since the family had decided to sign the affidavit saying that Mr. Birch was under the impression he had their permission to take their daughter to Mexico for vacation. And eventually the judge pretty much dismissed it. He gave him 5 years, but reduced it to 45 days, and he had to report within 3 months to serve the 45 days. Well, he reported, and because of good behavior time, he only served 10 days for this. Now, right before the kidnapping, the church had stepped in. It was the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, and decided that Birchtold needed some counseling. So during the course of this counseling, he goes to the Brobergs and tells them, that as part of his therapy, he needed to confide in them that he was dealing with abuse from when he was a child, that he had had sexual intercourse with an aunt at the age of 4. And he said that part of his therapy was that he needed to spend time alone with the Broberg girls. And the dad even made the comment, nothing of it, but if it would help him, that would be great. Um, so they allowed this, and they allowed Birchtold to actually sleep in bed with Jan at night. And they said this happened approximately 4 times a week for 6 months, right up until the time she was kidnapped the first time. There were so many red flags and so many things going on that I'm sorry, these parents were either stupid or didn't care. There are no other explanations. I agree, Tina. Both parents are idiots. um, and then it gets even stranger, if you can believe it, because once they get her back, and after he's done his 10 whole days in jail, he's calling the mother every day on the phone. They're talking on the telephone. He's telling the mother, I love you, I love you, I love you. And something that stuck out to me was her mother said, she asked him, then why did you marry Jan? To me, that's a jealousy issue. I don't get it. He had kidnapped your daughter, but your biggest concern is, why did you marry her if you love me? Well, he told her, if you come talk to me face to face, I can explain everything to you. Well, she says she drove to his camper. He was living in a camper at the time, and met with him. And they talked and talked, and he poured his heart out to her. And then he was holding her hand. Then he was rubbing her leg. Then they were kissing. And that day is the first time they had sex. Call me crazy, but this man kidnapped your daughter. But that was the beginning of an 8-month sexual relationship with the man who kidnapped her child. And she said very plainly she was completely in love with him. She said that was the most exciting time of her life. I still don't get it. I still don't get it. It was after, I think about 4 days after she went to see him, that Birchtold called Mr. Broberg and told him what happened. And he went to the church for counsel, and they advised him to get a divorce and seek custody of the girls. So he goes and he files for divorce and has her put out of the house. And in the documentary, he says, that was the worst day of my life. Again, I keep going back to, but your daughter was kidnapped. Why is the worst day of your life filing for divorce from your wife who had sex with the man who kidnapped your daughter? I don't get it. The second time that she disappeared, she left on her own. She met him. She climbed out the window. And yes, Tina, I agree. He completely allowed this to happen. I think both parents were as big a party to this as the kidnapper himself. When she left with him the second time, he put her in an all-girls Catholic school. He told the school that he was with the CIA. He was the girl's dad. His wife had died. Any information about her was to be confidential. Um, if anyone came looking for her, they were not to tell them she was there because people were after him because of his job. There you go, Autumn. At least you put her in school. um, he only did that so that they wouldn't catch him with her. That he knew they were watching him to see if she showed up there. And he was able, by putting her in school, he was able to still go visit her on weekends and have contact with her. he just he was an excellent con man. I just don't see how adults cannot see past all of these things. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I mean, if someone takes my kid and I get my kid back, I'm pressing charges. I'm sure not going to let him get away with it and then go have an affair with him. So I don't get that part. Now, the girl says while she was gone the first time, now she's 12. I understand kids are impressionable, maybe more so then than they are now. I know my 12-year-old grandson would never fall for anything like this, but she said there was like a little intercom when she came to, because he had given her sleeping pills, and it was a monotone voice, and they introduced themselves as Zeta and Zethra. They were supposed to be aliens. They told her through the intercom that her mother was half alien, her dad was not her biological dad, and it was her mission to be pregnant by the time she was 16 because that child would save this alien planet. Well, guess who she was supposed to have a baby with? Now, like I said, I don't think 12-year-olds nowadays would believe that. I find it hard to believe a 12-year-old then would, but I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. But this went on for years. In 1976, which was 2 years after the original abduction, she had, I guess, B had bought a family fun center of all things, and she wanted to go work it during the summer. Her parents told her no. Her dad was adamant that she wasn't going. So B had called her mother and told her, well, Jan's coming whether you let her or not. If you don't let her, she's going to hitchhike. So her mother decided, well, it's better if I just put her on the plane myself and I know she gets there safe. And that's what she did. She puts her on a plane and sends her to her kidnapper to spend the summer and work at this family fun center. Now, Birchtold's brother said that he went down there while they were there that summer, and he said they were happier than he had ever seen them. I guess B was the happiest he'd ever been, and just very strange coming from a brother who said he knew he was a pedophile, that he had tried to mess with his half-sister at one point when his half-sister was 6 and he was 12. I mean, there are so many players in this scenario, and none of them have any common sense. Are they all that stupid? But he says he told the girl, you need to go home. And she said, I don't want to go home. If I have to go home, I'll kill myself. And so she spent I think they said she spent 3 weeks there. And she went back home and just kept telling him she wanted to marry him, that she loved him. And during all this time, he was writing her love letters and she was writing them back to him. And what I found really odd was in the documentary, she had one of those letters and was reading it. So she has kept these letters all these years, which I find strange also. I know at one point she made the comment she was completely in love with him. She said she was more in love with him than she has ever been in her entire life. And she said it was a deeper love than she had ever experienced, even as an adult with real love. And anytime her mom talks about this man, she smiles. You don't see tears over what he did to their daughter. You know, you didn't see the dad cry in the documentary, other than when he talked about filing for divorce from his wife. Uh, Just so many strange things. Things that normal people would think, okay, this isn't right. And they seem to think it's okay. They even say there were red flags, but they didn't think anything of it. So who was there to protect the kid? Nobody. I agree, Tina. I agree. All the kids should have been removed and the parents in jail, but that's not what happened. And the mom and dad, apparently, after he filed for divorce that time, she decided she wouldn't have the affair anymore. Went home 4 days later, told him she was done with him and she just wanted to come home. And he said they fell into each other's arms and they've never let go since. I mean, the whole family's crazy. I'm sorry, but they are. You don't fall in love with the kidnapper of your child. You don't let your child go spend the summer with her kidnapper. You just everything in the world that can be wrong with this story is. I think they made the documentary to tell their side and thought it might make them look better, but in my opinion, this documentary just made it look so much worse because now people know everything. I mean, they didn't seem to be hiding anything. They seemed real upfront and honest about it. It was just crazy. Her mom wrote a book about it. Um, her daughter said they spent hours just conversating like it was an interview. And her mom actually wrote a book about it. I haven't read the book. I have no desire to read the book. I I would not purchase the book because I wouldn't want any royalties going toward that family at all. Uh, I know she speaks out now about child abuse and things like that. And at one point, he took her to court over the book and everything. And she just, I guess in court, she was telling him, if you're really sorry, you can just tell the truth, own up to what you did, which he denied the alien thing, which of course he would. So I don't know if he said if that's true or not, but that's neither here nor there. Um, when when he found out that he was going to be charged for other crimes, he was still out on his own recognizance and ends up killing himself. It makes no sense to me that he was even out of jail in the first place. He should have been stuck in there. He should have been stuck in there back in 74, but he wasn't. I mean, the whole story to me is crazy. I don't know if they enjoyed it or they act like they didn't want the attention. With the second abduction, they said, well, that one, they didn't report it for 2 weeks that she was even gone. They told the neighbors she was at her grandma's and different things. But they didn't wanna report it because they said they didn't want that in the media. They didn't want people to look at them bad. So again, it was, let's cover our shame at the risk of our daughter's safety. I I don't understand it. I don't get it. I mean, if you guys have an answer to it, please let me know because I don't have one. I wondered about that, Tina, if he could have been charged because he was already married, but since it was in Mexico and they wouldn't recognize it in the United States, I guess that made the difference. And her parents sent the marriage certificate into Mexico and had the marriage annulled. Exactly. Exactly. I like I said, I don't think anyone can be that naive to be something going on, maybe more so than we know, more so than the homosexual relationship and the relationship between the kidnapper and the mom. I They don't allude to that in the documentary, and they seemed pretty open, but I just can't see protecting my child's kidnapper for those reasons. Yes, they're freaking crazy. So, Autumn, what's your input? You always have good thoughts. Autumn's not going to answer me. Glad you didn't live in the 70s. Well, I know he was convicted before he ever kidnapped Jan. He had been convicted and served a year for molesting another little girl. And there were also two families in the same area that he had tried getting close to their little girls, and they just kind of shut him out, sent him on his way. So people in the area knew what he was like. The people in the church knew what he was like because they're the ones that suggested he get counseling because of his fascination with little girls. Um, One of the neighbors of the Broberg family had said that Birchtold had invited him and his wife on a boat for the day, and it was those two. It was Birchtold and his wife, and they also brought Jan. Now, the Birchtolds had 5 children. Why weren't any of those children with them? Why weren't Jan's 2 sisters or her parents invited? It was just Jan. And he made the comment that day that it was very inappropriate. He was uncomfortable with the situation. He felt like there was more to the relationship. And he flat out said, I don't want any part of this. I will never do anything with the Birchtolds again. Melody, the two families before The Brobergs did shut him out, yeah. But the Brobergs didn't. And Autumn, I agree with you. She had went on vacations as far as to Seattle, even. Her sisters didn't go, but she was invited to go. I mean, that right there is a pretty big flag, as why would they invite one of the children and not the others? There were just a lot of red flags that I think were ignored. And I think had they not been ignored, maybe this wouldn't have happened. I think it should have been reported sooner rather than worrying about upsetting someone or hurting someone's feelings. Or I think the mother said she didn't want to bother the police on the weekend when it said to call the other office. She didn't want to get everybody worked up over nothing. And I'm sorry, but it's not nothing when your child is missing. That's a pretty big deal. Tina, that could be the case. They come across as a real caring family, but you have to question that with what went on. I know Jan in the documentary made the comment that the way she was able to forgive her parents was to help them forgive themselves. Um, I think afterwards maybe they blamed themselves a lot, but I think that was rightfully so. I think I would have blamed myself quite a bit. He actually, I think he had 5 children, and he lived in the home with the children before the first kidnapping. Um, the the girls used to have sleepovers. Um, they would sleep on the trampoline at night, out under the stars. You know, they described it as being a really nice childhood. And the Broberg children were uh, good friends with the Birchtold children. So I don't understand why he didn't have his kids around more. I guess because that would have limited his opportunities to get at Jan. I don't know. Um, After the first kidnapping, he had moved away and the wife and the children stayed, but he moved away and was working. He worked for his brother at an auto dealership. His brother said he was an excellent salesman, sold cars to everybody, and he would come home on the weekends. And he would attend church every Sunday. Uh, in the documentary, the Brobergs say how everybody would pat him on the back at church, you know, and tell him, "We know you've been sick. We hope you come through this okay. Um, we're praying for you." So everybody knew this was going on, but nobody really did anything to stop it. And that's my biggest problem with it. Nobody tried to stop this. The FBI agent that was involved in the documentary, he himself said, He told the Brobergs to stay away from the Birchtolds, and they didn't. He said, and then when they went in and signed the affidavits, they crushed his case. And he said, I had lived and breathed that case. He said, I took time away from my family and my children, and then they do something like that. And it made him feel like it was a waste of his time and time that he could have spent with his family. So, even the FBI, they were extremely upset by this. But their hands were tied at that point because the family refused to cooperate because they were afraid that Birchtold would air their dirty laundry. So in that position, what are you going to do? I think he did the best he could. I still haven't found anything that explains why the judge dropped the 5-year sentence down to 45 days. From the 45 days to the 10 days, all they said was he got time for good behavior. So all he spent was 10 days on the kidnapping and taking her to Mexico. And the one thing her parents did do when they brought her back from Mexico was have her checked out by a doctor. And because he never fully penetrated her, the doctor found no signs of sexual abuse. Her hymen was intact. It didn't show any abrasions like it had been, forceful or anything like that. And Jan herself in the documentary talks about it wasn't a violent rape like you hear about. She said it was as if he was as concerned that she enjoy it as much as him. And she said he never, of course, entered her all the way. She said maybe an inch or something like that. So I don't know if maybe not having that proof is why the FBI couldn't take it any further without the family testifying. But like I said, I can't find any reason why they would have lowered it from 5 years to 45 days. That boggles my mind. Tina, shame on you. um, let's see here. Now, the trip I was talking about where they went to Seattle, that was in June of 73. And he made the comment that Jan was at the table having dinner and she started wobbling back and forth. She was talking incoherently. So he thought it best if he take her back to the room. So he took her to the room, and she did tell her sister that when they got back, that she had felt groggy and she woke up and that he was in the room naked. So there again, why weren't the parents? Maybe the kids didn't tell the parents. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But again, it just seems like something could have been done even at that point. There were so many times that this could have been stopped and it wasn't. And I think he was an excellent con man, but I don't think the best of con men could talk me into not pressing charges after you've taken my kid to Mexico, or talk me into having an affair with you and living happily ever after. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I agree. Well, hello, Scott. I agree, Tina. I can't see myself sending my daughter with any adult man on any outing without someone else with them. I can't see allowing that to happen. Um, and then the brother just doesn't make sense to me. He knows the man's a pedophile. He goes down there, he sees them, and they're happy. And I think I would have a big problem with that. Hi, Mom. She must be on her phone and can't figure out how to comment. I think that's pretty much all I have on it. Just a lot of questions. Like I said, I don't know if the people were stupid or didn't care. I don't know what it was, but either way, I feel like they allowed it to happen. I feel like it's on them. So if you guys don't have anything, I think that'll wrap it up. On some good, bad drugs? Maybe. Who knows? Mom texted. She wanted to let you know about him sleeping with Jan. I think we already covered that. How they let him sleep in there because they thought it was part of his therapy for about 6 months, 4 times a week. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the church knew as far as how far it went. I know the church knew he had a fascination with young girls. And that's why they recommended him get counseling. And then he also saw a psychologist, which come to find out that psychologist had had his license revoked. And like I said, every adult in this case let this child down. I don't think she had a chance from the get-go. His brother knew, and obviously his wife knew that he was that way because he had already been convicted on another little girl and done a year's time. So, and people in town knew because 2 of the families had pushed him out and said, hey, back off. We don't want you around. So there were plenty of people around who knew and did nothing to stop it. And like I said, the parents waiting so long the first time she was abducted on a Thursday, and they didn't notify the FBI until Monday.